Welcome to another episode of Banking Transformed, the podcast that dives deep into the trends, innovations, and strategies shaping the future of banking. I'm your host, Jim Marous, owner and CEO of the Digital Banking Report and co-publisher of the Financial Brand. The evolution of digital banking has transformed from assisting with basic transactions to providing integrated platforms that provide seamless DIY experiences across all devices. This evolution has been driven by advancements in technology, changing customer expectations, and the entry of fintech and big tech competitors. Today, banks are increasingly focused on user experience, personalization, and real-time functionality while also enhancing security along the way. In this episode of Banking Transformed, we are joined by Siva Narendra, the CEO of Tyfone. Siva discusses how consumers are driving these advancements of digital banking using experiences outside banking to drive expectations and innovations. The world of digital banking is evolving every day, responding to the expectations of consumers for a seamless DIY experience. As these technologies advance, banks need to balance innovation with robust security measures and regulatory compliance, all while maintaining a strong focus on customer relationships and trust in an increasingly digital world. So Siva, can you discuss a little bit about your personal background as well as what Tyfone brings to the marketplace?
Absolutely, Jim. Delighted to be spending some time with you and your listeners. So my background, I'm actually not wearing what I usually wear when I go see bankers, which is a jacket. I introduce myself typically as somebody that is trained as a pocket protector wearing geek that learned to wear pocket squares. So that's my background.
That's great.
So I come from the digital world. I used to be in big tech, and then decided that based on what I could see in the market, there is a increasing gap that's a worthwhile set of solutions that can be built to fill that gap. Given increasingly more and more U.S. households want relationship with community institutions, but end up picking larger financial institutions for one reason only, which is digital. So, and this gap has gotten wider, right?
Yeah.
Going through the pandemic, community is more important. Obviously, digital is even more important. So we see ourselves leveraging our strengths. Myself and my co-founder, we both came from the computing world, Intel and the cloud ecosystem. So building digital banking, digital moves really fast, banking doesn't.
Yeah.
So building digital technologies that helps fill that gap, we see that as a very fulfilling activity to do. So that's really where our background comes in, and we ended up hiring our CTO who built digital for UBS. So we really build highly scalable big bank technology for community institutions. So that's really what we do. And just one quick point.
Yeah.
Our objective of building the architecture and the solution is really enabling banking to move at the pace of digital. Now, of course, that's easier said than done because we're not the only ones to do it. There is a whole ecosystem. But the ecosystem is also moving. So it's a pretty exciting time to be in this marketplace.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, 10 years ago, there would still be institutions that did not have a real digital banking platform. They were using their online platform with a phone interface, and it really wasn't digital banking. But nowadays, almost every institution has some form of digital banking platform. When you're going into financial institutions today, I would assume that most are trying to enhance what they already have. When you're looking at, if you're taking them as a group, What's the missing part that many organizations are missing in their digital banking platform that you're going in to solve for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, really, if you look at a lot of our customers, and in some cases, even some of the larger players, they're looking for digital solutions, right? They have a problem and they want to fix, and they often find vertical solutions that combine the experience for the end user or the employee all the way through integrated solutions. So it's sort of a vertical solution that sometimes becomes pretty rigid. Like you mentioned, it used to be internet banking with the phone solution sort of hanging off of it. And then there was mobile banking. And then now there is chatbots, video banking. These are all vertical solutions, right? And often become silos. The way we built the technology and the way we explain our value is we are not a vertical solution provider. We have three horizontal independent pieces of solutions. So we have a dedicated integration layer, and we actually have a dedicated integration team. All they do is integrate to various data sources. And then they expose, this is they as in our own internal team dedicated for it. So it's an integration layer. And then we have an API and security layer. So we convert all of our integration, doesn't matter which core, doesn't matter what bill payment, doesn't matter what check deposit, doesn't matter what real-time payments, doesn't matter what card control company. We convert that to an internal common API framework.
Yep.
And then the third is the user experience layer. Doesn't matter whether the user is a member at a credit union, a business at a community bank, the financial institution itself, or even our own customer success team or our software developers. That's a separate layer. So we have an integration layer, a API and security layer that is all standards based. So we do FTX, ISO 20022, and OAuth.
Yep.
And we provide our own identity provider platform. Our customers can leverage it, or if they want Okta, we can plug in Okta and remove ours. So that's what we do. We basically build horizontal layers, and there is a significant benefit for that. If one of our customers wants a new user experience, let's say a chatbot, they don't have to worry about data integration because it's already done. You're just modifying the user experience layer. And the other benefit that we've seen for our customers is that there are some customers that have exactly the same set of systems inside the institution, but have two separate brands, a digital-only brand and a traditional branch brand.
So really, your solutions are very composable. Then you can a client, a financial institution, can work with you on one of the layers, or they can work with you on one of the channels to bring the best in market for that component, correct?
Exactly. And we also add, for example, we have payment services that allow end users to skip a loan payment. Yep. For a fee. Or if they only have loan relationship, they really don't want to go through a full digital enrollment. So they want to simply just come and pay the loan. Or our instant payment platform. All of those are built to be completely agnostic to our digital banking platform. So every piece that we build, to a large extent, can be self-sustaining piece using microservices. I mean, this is not something that's rocket science. This is how the industry builds it today. But some of our ecosystem participants come from the old school or old world tech that really difficult to convert that rigid single code solution from integration to user experience to fit into this model, right? So the 3-layer architecture is a textbook architecture for the modern computing world. Because what that allows is it isolates data source from user experience. And it isolates user experience from data source. So you can change your core banking system without affecting your customer's experience. They won't even know that you changed.
So I'm by no means a technologist, and you unfortunately I as much as I talk about it, I don't understand it nearly as well. But from what I'm hearing from you, is the way you solve solutions for financial institutions, you're providing them a leap from a very static, very old-fashioned core around digital banking to one that has a lot more flexibility, which I would imagine as change continues to happen, your ability to address those changes is much simpler with your platform, correct?
Absolutely. This is about creating a marketplace where the user experience layer is not just controlled by us for our customers, right? Because core banking systems functionality is about being highly stable.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Digital banking functionality is about being highly flexible.
Therefore, if I have a bot provider that I like a lot, you can integrate that within your platform very easily because of the way that you have it built, correct?
That's right. Yep. Technically speaking, they can integrate themselves.
Yeah.
The only reason where we get engaged is because, unlike the web world where you can build your own layer on top and everything could work together, in the mobile app world, you have one app to download, right? So you have to do it deliberately. So it doesn't, the user experience is very unforgiving in the mobile world. So that's where there is a little bit more coordination needed for proper user experience. But otherwise, it's a you don't necessarily need to talk to Google to integrate to Google, right? So that's how we see ourselves.
So it's interesting in doing research on Tyfone. One of the things you bring up is you have a lot of patents, and mind you, it is false to look at any company and judge them entirely by patents, but it does show that you're continually innovating. What is an innovation or a couple innovations that you're really proud of as the CEO of the company?
So, for us, I just want to take a slight detour and explain why we actually do it.
That's great.
Why do we focus on patents? So when it comes to technology, when we used to work in big tech, intellectual property was really seen as a value for the stakeholders. So all the hard work that gets done gets protected, largely because you really want your ecosystem to collaborate with you. Right. It's just a leverage. So Apple chips are made by Samsung, their biggest competitor, largely because there is leverage in intellectual property ownership. So that's how we see ourselves. We build technology, but we invent. So some of the things that we're very proud of is the ability to what we call as decentralize your identity. Today, all of our identity is validated by you typing a password that's stored in some cloud infrastructure, or a one-time password that's delivered from a code that was generated centrally. So all those are compromisable, right? So what we have is a completely decentralized security. It's almost the equivalent of having your Visa chip card authorizing your digital banking transaction. Now, that's not in common use today, but it's beginning to happen where a hardware token is being used to authorize, right? So for us, the cryptographic approval is a set of intellectual property that we have for digital banking functions where you are not the only one controlling the back end. You have to control a whole range of systems. So that's something we're very proud of. And the other aspect that we're very proud of, that we have a lot of IP, is enabling point of sale commerce.
Okay.
At the end of the day, pay by bank is coming to the point of sale. So being able to enable in a very seamless manner at the point of sale is sort of the end game for all of our customers. Right. So those are some examples.
So that's interesting, because what it shows is that while you have a very modern platform on different layers, you mentioned the horizontal layers, you're innovating on an ongoing basis to try to stay ahead of the market. So just one of the things we've seen when we interview other companies or solution providers is the reason why financial institutions pick a partner to build, in your case, a digital banking platform, or in other cases, other solutions, is that you hope that your partner stays ahead of where the technology and where the modernization is going, so that you don't have to do that for them. You don't have to be the expert in everything. And what's interesting from what you're saying, just looking at the pay by bank solution, is that you're staying ahead of the marketplace to provide your clients, when they want it, the ability to move forward and be future ready and be resilient. So how do you see, on the innovation side, how do you prepare, and how is Tyfone preparing for emerging technologies like AI, augmented reality, or any other of these futuristic views, or even generative AI as it relates to building maybe a digital twin that you could look for personalized solutions for? What's your vision on that? What's going to happen in the digital banking world?
Yeah. So we having come from big tech, the way we look at it is, what is the underlying principle that drives these evolutionary changes? Because sometimes it looks revolutionary, right? Like chatbot and AI looks very revolutionary. That's because it was evolving over the last 30 years. We just didn't see it. So the digital technologies, if you apply the fundamental law, which is predominantly driven by Moore's law, there is a 2 to 3x change every 2 to 3 years. Cumulatively, after 10 years, there's a 1000x change.
Yeah.
So we look at that evolution and we bucket the evolution into 3 areas, and we do research in each one of them. One is the evolution of experiences. In the evolution of experiences, what we're really looking at today is, as the computation changes, the evolution of experiences solves what problem for our customers. And I'll give one example. So today, the biggest challenge our prospects have is when they change digital banking, their users don't like it because something dramatically changed, and they're like, "Oh, why'd you make the change?" Right?
They don't see it from the way that we tried to present it. They see it simply as, even if you change, it's interesting. We've seen, even if you change color of things, people think the whole thing's been messed with, and it's not.
Right. Yeah. So we bring something that's dramatically better to the customers, but still they don't like change. The end users don't like change. So one of the things that we've done is, digital banking predominantly is still like the old Yahoo search, where you have to click 7 times to get to what you need to get to. As consumers, we've moved way past where you could just type. So in our system, you can pretty much type anything you want and it'll take you there, right? Every page is 1 page away. That is the starting point for bringing AI into that, right? We're training our users to say, "Oh, you want to reorder a checkbook that you've not done for the last 10 years? Just start typing check and it'll give you all the options," right? It's low-hanging fruit. You just need to build tech for it. So that's how we look at user experience change, the evolution, because that's what's going to become a non-hallucinating generative AI solution, which we've already built. The difference between full generative AI and being careful about not hallucination is to use a combination of, I won't spend too much time on tech, vector search as large language, but gate it with lexicon search that guarantees the output. Right. So that's an example. And there are 2 other areas that we focus on. Look at the foundational principles of exponential difference in digital on every generation. That's 2 to 3 years within the computing world, and see what does that mean for our customers. The 2 other areas are evolution of systems. So everything is becoming real time, right? What does that mean to our customers? So about 4 years ago, we invested in building real-time payments. So that's why we were the first digital banking provider on the FedNow network. And the third is evolution of trust. So fraud prevention today is predominantly probabilistic, all analytics driven. Criminals will have analytics as well, right? And they have to be lucky ones, especially with the AI systems. Criminals are going to win if you run analytics-based security. So the evolution of trust, it has to rely on what we call as deterministic security, some of the inventions that we have. So those are the three areas that we focus based on foundational computation principles that says everything gets better 2 to 8 times every 18 months to 24 months. So 36 months from now, you may need something that's 60 times better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And what
and
does
you
that
got to
mean
make
for our customers?
the decision now, because every day you wait puts you further behind. So,
Exactly.
when you're talking to financial institutions, they bring you in, they have a good thought process, they have a good ambition of what they want to do, and you present what Tyfone can do. What gets in the way of what I call an easy or a more seamless integration and transformation? When a client actually says, let's go forward, what gets in the way of progressing at a pace that really they should progress at? What happens?
So there are two things that we help plan to maximize the time efficiency. One is all the integrations that they need for the functionality that they want, because they are making a platform change because they want new things,
Yep.
right? But new things mean often there are new user experiences or new integrations. So getting that planned ahead of time is really, really important. So we call it the reverse RFP. So
Oh,
we
okay.
provide a list of
Yep.
questions, just like we get asked, all of us get asked a proposal. So we have a reverse RFP process to accelerate that, and we discover things that they probably forgot,
Take for
or
granted.
sometimes
Yeah.
take it for granted. Exactly. So that's one very important step. The second thing is very operationally focused. It's testing, right? Often in our customer base, it's changing, and we hope the change continues. All of the platforms that we need to integrate to hide the messy wires that are inside a financial institution to provide a seamless experience to the end user, whether it's a customer or an employee, requires testing before you launch, which means you need to have sufficient test data and test
Yep.
accounts, right? So that's one of the things that our industry is not really good at providing, and some of that is our partner ecosystem. Some of that is our customers itself. So we're working to create not just data lakes that solve the problem, but also test identities that can work with multiple systems to leverage not only testing of data flow, but testing of authentication. Because providing digital experiences that don't have digital trust will eventually have problems.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that breaks down everything. It's
Yeah.
in because every move forward we make gets into new risk elements that we have to eliminate or at least modify. So, again, and if you lose that trust, it doesn't matter how good it works. Because
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are sort of the two critical areas. Um, Making sure we don't take things for granted because they may not have done a recent digital banking transition. They may want new capabilities. So making sure that we have a well thought out reverse RFP,
Yep.
number one. And then the second is let's make sure that we can test every aspect of it, and be comfortable by the time we launch. We have all of the data sources and user experiences managed.
So when you look at where we are today in digital banking and where we need to be, what is the one area as you look at the industry overall that the banking industry really has fallen short on? That you can help with, but there are elements. We talk about personalization, all these other things, but when you go from client to client to client, where's the biggest gap in customer experience that we need to solve for as an industry to make digital banking better?
Yeah, I think you said it earlier. Personalized experience, and you led in with that aspect. That's really important. But I think what we all forget when we look at a beautiful car and we want the user experience of the car to be amazing, uh, the engine better be really, really good, right? So there are two aspects that we focus on and where the gaps are. One is making sure we can organize the data to provide relevant user experiences that is more than just you visiting a digital branch, right? And that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier. Today, it is something like you visit a digital branch. You open up the phone, click on the app, click 7 different things before you get to do something. We want to move from that to a truly large language model digital
Yep.
experience, not with chatbot, but really type anything you want and we'll give you what we have,
And it'll be
right?
specific to you.
It will be specific to you,
Yep.
right? Or you can talk to it. Talking is a little difficult when it comes to personal financial services, but being able to interact in a large language model way. So that's one area, but we're stair stepping it. We're not asking to bring ChatGPT into banking because I don't think that's a wise idea, right? You need to really stair step your way into large language models. So that's one area and gap that we're filling. And the second thing is the engine. The engine has to do with trust and real time. Everything has to be deterministically trustworthy, and everything has to be real time because you no longer have to pay your bill Friday at 3 p.m. because your bill is due Monday morning.
Yeah.
Right? You can pay Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Right? So building a complete infrastructure for real-time payments to support digital experiences is really, really critical. And we're seeing tons of data already with one customer that we launched, real-time payments. We've already moved quarter of their ACH payments to real-time at 4x lower fraud, at 10x lower call center calls. And the Friday volumes of payments versus the weekend volume of payments is 50% more than the Friday volume. Because people are recognizing that they don't have to make payments on Fridays.
Right.
Because 24/7, 365. So those are the two things. One is the extreme of really providing relevant experiences that rather than saying, I'm going to personalize the icons and you can move things around, that's not personalizing, right? Personalizing is really, you should be able to ask for anything and we should be able to provide that to you. Right. So we call it the penny concierge, that becomes your point of entry to talk to the machine.
Yep.
On one hand, on the other hand, build back an infrastructure that can support real-time systems that have deterministic security, like we talked about.
I love the concierge concept because if you really look at the way you can use a concierge well, the concierge leads with questions. The concierge asks a lot about you before it starts to solve for what restaurant should they recommend, what tour should they recommend, what sites should you see. They ask the questions first. And our ability as an industry to do that effectively and at scale has really fallen short. We don't do a good job of getting to know our customers. In fact, I bring up often my experiences with banking in that I go out of my way to tell my banks who I am, what I like, what I want to do, and they still don't take action accordingly, which is very frustrating. So, you're truly at the cutting edge of technology and what's possible out there, and you're showing that in the services you're providing at Tyfone. When you look at what can be done, what excites you about what I just call the near future, the next 3 years around what we are going to see in the digital banking arena as far as what's possible? We had a person on a podcast recently that we did at the Financial Brand Forum and said, it's getting closer and closer to a DIY platform where you're not going to need any financial institution. You're going to either be able to do it all on your phone or maybe without a phone. So what excites you about the future?
So if you really look at the complexity in digital banking or complexity inside a financial institution, it is because we have 10 different ways to make a payment. And there are 5 different networks, multiple platforms running on it. It's just a complex mess. By the way, it was all well-intended mess.
Oh, yeah. It comes from because banking will say, we'll do it any way you want. And sometimes that's not the best way to go about it. We got to help the client think. Yep.
Exactly. So, and it was an evolutionary mess that we created because we have systems that can pay money fast, like FedWire, that's expensive, that's only done for certain things. And then you have ACH and checks that are the other extreme, checks being the extreme one, which is the slowest and quote unquote, in some ways, the cheapest for transaction, but the overhead of management is very high. So we have the spectrum of payment methods in the spectrum being speed and cost. Right? In the two-dimensional space of speed and cost, we have all of these various methods that makes digital experiences rather complicated. So what we are doing is no matter which method you pick, we're going to run it on a real-time system that's the fastest, the cheapest, and the least fraud, right? Mm-hmm. So FedNow implementation, the way we spent the last 4 years building it, we've demonstrated it's not only the cheapest payment method, it is the fastest payment method, and is the least fraud payment method because it's push versus pull. We can talk about it, why it's fundamentally different. So we basically, no matter which payment method you pick, we settle via FedNow.
Yep.
If you want it to be paid 2 days later, we do instant payment 2 days later, right? What that does is over the next 2 to 3 years, we suspect, all payment method, from FedWire to Visa, MasterCard to checks. There's a Reg E versus Reg J difference. We'll talk about that, and we've already built solutions for it. Across the entire spectrum, should be settled via FedNow type real-time solutions because it makes the reconciliation overhead for the CFO's team 4 to 10x less. So that's what I'm excited about. Yes, user experiences and sexy stuff is important, but if your engine isn't clean and it's not real time and it's not deterministically protecting the identity, none of the experience matters.
Boy, that's so key. And it's interesting because when we talked about it with a lot of recent podcasts, they're saying, number one, you got to get the basics right. And the basics are make it easy to work, make it intuitive, and make it secure. And secure is the one that can override everything because we take it for granted, but the reality is that's being attacked every day. I think it's interesting when you talk about all the things you bring to a client. Do you just work with big financial institutions, or do you work? You mentioned earlier about community banks. Do you work with community banks primarily?
So our intellectual property, the paper patents, we license to anybody. We license to big tech. We license to anyone that believes they can take advantage of it.
Yep.
But when it comes to providing a cloud infrastructure, the three-layer architecture solution, we focus on community institutions.
Great.
Our smallest is a credit union that is close charter to the employees of an airline, all the way to a large Bay Area credit union that's over 10 billion in assets. So our customer profile ranges anywhere from 50 to 100 million in assets on one hand to tens of billions in assets on the other.
That's great because it's the marketplace that really, in some ways, our research shows, number one, they're more apt to move forward quickly. There's a very innovative spirit within the community banking area. We're seeing the most innovation happen at the smallest and the largest institutions. So the largest ones take your patents, the smallest ones take your solutions overall. When we talk about your solutions, and let's say an organization says, we just need a complete rebuild on our digital banking platform, how long does that take?
So it depends, right? It depends on two other stakeholders, which really collapses down to one, our prospect or customer. How fast can they move? So if it's coordinated, the fastest we've done is 3.5 months. The median is really 4 to 6 months. That we delivered the solution in 2 to 3 months, and then their testing and user acceptance. So I would say median is in the 4 to 6 months range. But there are some customers that plan way ahead. They start with the data migration a couple of years ahead, and then actually take effect, go live 2 years from that point. So that's sort of
But
the
what's interesting
extremes.
is with change happening so quickly, anything that extends that makes it so that they're sometimes behind the current by the time they implement. We've seen this at largest financial institutions. It's interesting how long organizations can take, but I think it's important because it's what we're seeing in the marketplace today with third-party solution providers is if financial institutions allow their partners to do what they do best, you don't have to change 80% of what's being implemented. In fact, 80% is probably the same from institution to institution. It's that 20% you have to focus on. And there's a benefit to all parties, the customers, the financial institution, and the solution provider, Tyfone, that the implementation takes less instead of more time. And it's exciting to me to see that we can do complete transformation in a 4 to 6 month period on a normal basis, because that really moves a financial institution forward in whatever calendar year they're in, which is really exciting to me. And it's exciting because it allows you as a company to continually evolving and bring new solutions to that institution that has done that. You also mentioned it earlier that not only do you work with community financial institutions, but you can give a composable solution. So if a company's trying to solve for just one specific problem, they can kick the tires of what your people offer. So finally, last question from within your organization. What, number one, keeps you up at night? What concerns you? But just as importantly, what excites you and your team as you're looking forward?
Yeah. So the thing that worries me the most is relationship building. I don't mean us building relationship with our customers, but our ecosystem building relationship with each other.
Yeah.
Our industry predominantly views itself as a walled garden approach, right, as opposed to a co-opetition approach. One of the largest marketing budget for Microsoft is on Google Ads, right? So we see ourselves as somebody that wants to work with the ecosystem in a co-opetition model. So that's why we built all of these microservice-driven solutions. So if somebody wants our payment solution but uses a different digital banking platform, it doesn't matter to us. We want to collaborate with the digital banking solution to enable that. So that's what keeps me up at night, because our ecosystem doesn't see it that way yet. There are increasing players, including the large ones, are beginning to go that direction, and I'm hopeful that happens sooner than later. And what really excites me is I think the digital experiences are beginning to see dramatic shifts, not because there is revolution happening in technology. It's just the evolutionary change that have happened exponentially over the last decade is now beginning to be required. Whether it is truly decentralized security, so digital credentials is the equivalent of you walking into a branch, is no longer in labs. It's now expected increasingly. So we are excited about the fact that a lot of our inventions that were forward-looking, we call it the pathfinding effort for our roadmap, those are now becoming reality. So that's not only adding value to us and validates our invention, it is bringing true value to our customers. So those are what I'm excited about. The real-time payments infrastructure that we started building about 4 years ago, the deterministic security to guarantee that Siva is Siva, Jim is Jim, not Siva pretending to be Jim on the internet, right? So those I know that's nuanced, technology-driven, but that's what excites us.
Siva, thank you so much for time with you today. It's interesting to see where the industry is going, what the potential is, what some of the challenges are. To your point about organizations working with each other for a better solution for their clients in cooperation or co-opetition, whichever way you want to go. We're seeing a lot more of that. We saw that at the Financial Brand Forum where your organization participated, that these organizations are doing a much better job of not being so protective that they can't open up their walls to working together because it works for everybody's benefit. I think the biggest challenge still is the core providers, the big organizations, because while they own the core systems, they think that they can do everything else as well. Nobody can do everything perfectly. And I think these partnerships are really good. We've seen, we at the Financial Brand Forum this year, as we've seen in the last few years, we see a lot of organizations talking to each other as well as talking to financial institution clients, which is always encouraging. So thank you so much for being on the show. And it's great to hear about what Tyfone's doing to make digital banking better.
I really appreciate that, Jim.
Thanks for listening to Banking Transformed, the top podcast in retail banking and the winner of 3 international awards for podcast excellence. We appreciate your support. If you enjoy what we're doing, please take some time to show some love in the form of a review and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcasts. A special thank you to our senior producer, Leah Hassage, audio engineer, Chris Fafalias, and video producer, Will Pritz. Until next time, keep innovating, keep thinking about the future.